Hey everyone, I'm Chris Thompson. This is Mike Mandel from Mike Mandel Hypnosis. And we've got a video here that is all about hypnotic metaphor. What is a metaphor? There are 3 different types, and Mike and I are going to explain them to you, and it's going to be awesome. So let's start with, what the heck is a metaphor?
Let's go with this. Yeah, and when we say metaphor, we're not talking about in the high school English class version of metaphors and similes and things like that. We're talking about hypnotic terminology. And for us, a metaphor is a story, however brief, that you tell someone else that has symbolism built into it, and it can actually cause change in the other person's life, in their beliefs, whatever, because your brain has a pattern matching system. Now, what that means is your brain takes things it already knows and then looks around and goes, what does this remind me of? What's this like? When you tell a good metaphor, it switches on the brain's pattern matching system, and you can use it for your advantage because it works below the conscious awareness of the person you're dealing with.
Okay, that's interesting, because if it works below the level of conscious awareness and it's a story about something else, that will tend to eliminate or reduce resistance, won't it?
Well, definitely, because if you don't know there's anything to resist, it's going to go right into the unconscious.
Okay, perfect. So let's start and explain the 2 main types of metaphor. I said there were 3 at the beginning of this video, and there are, but we're going to save the queen mother of all for the end. So let's start with the first type, the general metaphor.
Okay, a general metaphor is not a guy in the army. General metaphor means brilliantly funny. A general metaphor is a metaphor that you can tell to almost anyone under almost any circumstances, and it will have what is known as a salubrious effect, meaning it will have a beneficial effect. It might teach them a life lesson. It may cause them to reconsider things in a totally different light. In any case, it is a positive message that gets through to them. A classic example of this, Chris, I'll give you the thumbnail edition. It's a metaphor of a man walking down a beach after a really bad storm, and there's debris on the beach, and in the distance he sees somebody throwing rocks into the ocean. When he gets there, it isn't that. It's a very young boy, and he's throwing starfish into the ocean, and they've been beached by the storm, and there's thousands of them. And the man says, why are you doing this? You can't possibly help all these starfishes. And the kid picks up one, looks at it, throws it in the ocean, and he says, I just helped that one. So it's like, whoa, a powerful, powerful effect. Now, this teaches a lot of unconscious lessons. It teaches that things aren't always what they seem. It teaches that good can come out of destruction, the storm in this case. We can learn life lessons from children is another message here. We can all make a difference in some way to some person, and everything deserves a chance to live and thrive. And these are all built into this story about a kid on a beach.
That is so awesome. I love hearing that story, and that's a great example of a general metaphor, salubrious effect to cause change through story. Now, there's another type of metaphor. This is also a very common one. We're going to teach it. It is called the Isomorphic Metaphor. So let's break that down and then give a quick example as well.
Okay, with an isomorphic metaphor, it's really for a specific purpose. It's not just a general salubrious one you can tell under almost all circumstances, but it has a very particular application. So we take the example of, let's say somebody is working, trying to get ahead, but they're not having a good life because they're working themselves into the ground. They need to take a break, but they don't listen to anyone. And you can tell them the story of the 2 lumberjacks. It's a great story. A young lumberjack and an old lumberjack have this contest to see who can cut down the most trees in one day. And as the story develops, the young one's chop, chop, chop with his axe, and the older one's taking his time. The older one goes and takes a break, and the young one keeps going. The older takes a lunch break, comes back, and this keeps going on through the day. And at the end of the day, the young one checks, and he's cut down, say, 25 trees, and the old one's cut down 40 trees. And the young one is,
how did that happen?
How has this happened? And he said, you kept taking breaks. How have you managed to go so fast and to win? And the old lumberjack said, when you saw me taking a break, when you saw me leaving, I went to sharpen the axe. Whoa, powerful metaphor. And it teaches the lesson that if you're working too hard, it can be counterproductive. It teaches you the power of breaks. And when you take vacations and go and do something else, what's happening is your brain is doing a reset and you're getting rest, and you'll actually be more productive. So the isomorphic aspect is the idea that everything in the story has an aspect in real life.
Maps across.
Yes, right. So the trees are the person's work, and the cutting down the trees with the axe is his job, what he's doing. But The old lumberjack is teaching the lesson that taking the break, sharpening the axe, is the guy taking a break in his life so that his job will work even better.
So the old lumberjack is you delivering the metaphor to the other person in this case, right? So everything maps across on a one-to-one basis.
Right.
And you'll actually learn how to craft isomorphic metaphors like this very specifically for situations that other people are dealing with when you study hypnosis, whether it be with us or I don't know who else does a really great job of teaching
someone
metaphor.
else or us.
Inside of the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy, we do teach this, so it's awesome. So
now that metaphor, though, I just want to say it also teaches that working harder isn't always the best way to get more accomplished.
That's true, or at least not more hours. Working harder, working with a lot more effort isn't necessarily the right way to get more accomplished. That's a great point. Okay, so we've got our key points, I think, covered on the general metaphor and the isomorphic metaphor. Let's do a quick wrap up. So it's a one-to-one correspondence.
That's the isomorphism.
And what's the other main point? Never explain a metaphor.
Resist the temptation to explain a metaphor. Chris knows I've had people change in front of my eyes by just telling them a simple story on a plane or sitting in a restaurant, and their lives are actually transformed because the perfect metaphor will hit them at that moment, right between the metaphorical eyes, and transform their life. But if you make the mistake of explaining the metaphor, and it's so tempting.
Because you're a genius.
Yeah, you've done so well. Did you get it, Chris? The tomato plant was your Uncle Bill, and the tree was that vacation that he took in the Philippines.
Don't explain it or you'll wreck it.
Explain it, you'll wreck it, because you want their conscious mind to be unaware of what you're doing. The content keeps the conscious mind entertained, but the structure is the machine that works down below the threshold of conscious awareness.
All right, so we're going to wrap up this video with one more style of metaphor. We're not going to teach the whole thing, but we are going to give you some fun homework where you can actually watch an amazing rendition of this, which is called the nested loop metaphor. So why? I was going to say why, and I combined it with the word what. Why the heck is a nested loop metaphor, Mike?
A nested loop metaphor, also known as stacking realities or multiple embedded loops, they are the queen mother of all metaphors. They are amazing metaphors because they actually induce hypnosis just by you telling these stories. Basically, you're telling stories within stories within stories. You start story A, get most of the way through, and segue into story B without telling the person. And then you go into story C. And then at the bottom, you can give direct suggestions right into the unconscious. And then you seamlessly finish story C and then finish story B and then A, reversing it as you come out. And what happens is everything at the bottom of at least 3 loops will slip into unconscious awareness, and the person will consciously miss it completely, but it is extremely powerful.
All right, so if you want to learn nested loop metaphors, of course, you can study with us, the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy. You'll find links in the description. Also, I'm going to give you a link in the description, and we'll put a card. It should show up somewhere on the screen right now on this video, to link to the keynote presentation that Mike gave at Hypnothoughts Live in 2019, because it was one massive nested loop metaphor.
Loops within loops within loops.
It had everybody just silent. You could hear a pin drop in the room when this was going on. So check that out. Join the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy if you want to learn more. And while you're on YouTube, make sure you click that subscribe button and ring the bell, because then you'll always be notified of our newest videos on this YouTube channel. Thanks again, and good night.